Good afternoon, classmates, and good afternoon, Mom. My report today is about Hindu literature, as we have tackled before the Asian and the Japanese literature. So today we are about to start my report on Hindu, and these are my understanding about the Hindu literature. So, India is the seventh largest country located in South Asia and the second most populous country. And India is about 3,000 kilometers wide, a shoreline about 7,000 kilometers along the Bay of Bengal. And India and Bharat are both official names. And India derives from Indus River used by Greek. And India civilization grew up in the Indus Valley around 4000 to 2500 BC. Now, let's go to the map of India. As we can see that India is wide as it is. As we can see, the symbol or the sign at is the state or union territory capital of India, and the star here is the national capital of India, which is the New Delhi. And of course, as we can see, the lines, this is the borderline or international border of the country. So as we can see, this part is the Bay of Bengal, and this part is where the Himalayan found. So next, India is divided into three main topographic regions: the Himalayan mountain system on the north, and the northern plain drained by Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra rivers in the north-central India, and lastly the peninsular India in the south. In terms of people, India has one of the world's most diverse population, with most of the major areas represented. As over 1,000 years, countless groups have migrated into the subordinate, and many of these groups have maintained distinctive cultures down through years. In terms of language, India has more than 200 languages spoken, but four major languages are represented. The first one is the Indo-Arab branch of Indo-European group, or the major linguistic family in Europe. The second one is the Dravidian language group, and Hindi, the fourth most widely spoken language in the world, and lastly is the Indo-Aryan language. Next is, as per the religious census data released by the Registrar General and Census Commissioner India, that 79.8% are Hindu and 14.2% is Muslim, and 2.3% for the Christian, and 2% for Buddhist, Jainism, and others, and lastly is 1.7% for Sikhism. As to their caste system, Indian caste system is the major social system that groups of people according to their birth. When it is Brahmin, priests or the highest caste. When Kshatriyas are the warriors and king, while the Vaisyas are the merchants, and Shudras are the manual laborers. However, some people do not fall into caste because they are called the Dalits or untouchables. In terms of education, literary is higher on man than woman. It means mas magaling ang mga lalaki kaysa sa babae. And male literacy rate is 82.14%, while the female literacy rate is 65.46%. And a total literary rate of India is 74.04%. And in terms of their education, it has four levels. The lower primary is age to 6 to 10, while the upper primary is 11 and 12. And the third is the high, ages 13 to 15, and the higher secondary is 17 and 18. In their government, federal system with parliamentary form of government consists of two houses. The first one is the Raiya Sabha, or the Council of States, and the Lok Sabha, House of the People, were elected directly by eligible voters and sit 5 years unless the parliament is dissolved. The Indian National Congress Party is most identified remained control on the central government. Now let's talk about the literature of the India, the drama, the prose, and the poetry. We have here the Sanskrit literature. It means the oral tradition produced the Vedic holy texts. And Indian literature has two great books, which is the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Around 400 BC, Panini produced his Sanskrit grammar, and they used the Sanskrit in Middle Ages in religious context by the priesthood. The history of Indian literature falls into two periods, the Vedic period and the Sanskrit period. I have here the sample of the Sanskrit alphabet, wherein we can parang may baybay, or how we can pronounce these letters of Sanskrit. As you can see dito sa gilid, we have the palatal, cerebral, dental, and labial. I hope that we are familiar with this. Pero sa akin is, I think I forgot. However, the Sanskrit literature were produced about 16th century BC by people known as Aryans, or were cattle herders who were originally nomadic, who established kingdoms in North India. So, we have also here the Vedas, or the Book of Knowledge, where Vedas is composed in Old Sanskrit by Aryan poets and constitute the fundamental scripture of Hindu religion and used as sacramental rites of Hinduism. And Vedas, or Book of Knowledge, compilation of two major literary forms, the hymns of praise to nature deities, ritual chants to accompany Aryan religious rituals. We have here the four types of Vedas. We have here the Rig Veda, the anthology of 1080 hymns to various gods. Example is the creation hymn. We have here the Samaveda. The book of chants consists of liturgies. The Yajur Veda is the prayer book, which consists of liturgies and repetition of Rig Veda but contains many original formulas. And last but not the least is the Atharva Veda, or the book of spells, which contains some hymns, spells, incantations, and notions about demonology and witchcraft. We have here also under the prose. The first one is the Brahmanas. Prose texts that discuss the solemn, sacrificial rituals as well as the commitment on their meaning and composed by the Hindu priests. We have here also the Aranyakas or wilderness texts or forest treatises composed by people who meditated in the woods and the discussion and interpretation of the dangerous rituals. We have also here the Upanishads, composed by a group of sages who questioned the usefulness of ritual religion and consist of 108 dialogues between teachers and their students about the individual soul's unity, and it is the India's oldest philosophical treatise and form of the foundation of major schools of Hindu philosophy. Another part of prose is the Sutras, where I did not include, around 500 to 200 BC. Extremely concise or often unintelligible treatise concerning rituals. We have also here the Tipitaka or the Three Baskets, major religious text of Buddhism, and written in the Pali language and includes the teachings of Buddha. So, hindi mawawala talaga pag Hinduism or sa India ang kanilang Diyos or Buddha. Jatakas or Stories of Birth of Buddha tells the 547 Buddha's former birth. So, meron din palang story si Buddha. Next, we have here the secular works of India or the epic, the Mahabharata. Though it is classified as secular works, the two epics contain the great deal of Indian mythological and religious matter. So this Mahabharata is a great epic of Bharata dynasty, and it is written by the poet of Vyasal, and this is a tale of dispute between two branches of the Bharata clans over the right to rule the kingdom. So, additional from the Mahabharata, it is also the longest poem in the world, about 200,000 lines, nearly 8 times long as the Iliad and Odyssey combined. Kahit pagsamahin natin ang Iliad and Odyssey, mas mahaba pa rin ang Mahabharata. Also, it is divided in 18 books, wherein the story talk about the nucleus of the concern, the battle between the Kauravas and Pandavas, wherein the remainder of the story, Mahabharata, contains glosses, descriptions, legends, and treatises on religions, law, philosophy, and military matters. So, before na mag-story tayo about the epic Mahabharata, we have here the important Hindu deities. We have here Shiva, Rama, Ganesha, Krishna, and Vishnu. We have also the Trinity of or Hindu Trinity. We have here Brahma, which is the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, Shiva, the destroyer or transformer, and Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, music, and arts, and Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, while Parvati, the divine mother. They are the Shakti's female aspect, main Hindu gods and goddesses. Now, this is the summary of the family tree of the story Mahabharata. So we can understand this summary if we know or we read the story of the Mahabharata. Okay. Next. Now let us discuss the story of Mahabharata. So, the Mahabharata is one of the two major Sanskrit epic of ancient India. Traditionally, the authorship of Mahabharata is attributed to the great sage Veda Vyasa, also known as Krishna Devayapayana. So, it has been called Mahabharata due to the immense size and its dealing with the story of people of the race descended from the ancient emperor Bharata, culminating the war. So, this is the story of Mahabharata. Santanu, a king of Hastinapura, was married to the beautiful girl Ganga, who was the river goddess in disguise. She agreed to live with him as long as he never questioned her actions. She left him along with 8 sons, Bhishma, after he questioned about drowned 7 sons. So, Bhishma abducted 3 sisters who are Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. Later, Amba was left to her city, but her betrothed abandoned. So she returned to Bhishma and asked him to marry her, ever faithful to his vow, but Bhishma refused. Amba then vowed that one day she would kill him. She would kill Bhishma. However, there are no other men in the family beside Bhishma, and he has renounced women. So Satyavati, the king's second wife, asked her firstborn son, Vyasa the poet, to give children to the 2 princesses, Ambika and Ambalika. The princess disliked him, for as an ascetic who has taken a vow of poverty, he was filthy and smelled. He explained to them that the first child would be born blind because the first princess closed her eyes when seeing him, and the second child will be pale-skinned because the second princess became pale at his touch. So, nagkaroon ng bunga. Ambika gave birth to blind son called Dhritarashtra, and Ambalika gave birth to the pale one called Pandu. So as we can see, their names are difficult to read. So Pandu shoots a gazelle of Brahmin, so he cursed him that should Pandu make love to either of his 2 wives, he would die instantly. Pandu resigns the throne and goes to live with his wives in the mountain. So, dalawa ang asawa po ni Pandu, si Kunti at si Madri. So, Kunti, his first wife, informed him that she possessed a magic power and that 3 sons are born to her. Yudhishthira, the firstborn, truthful and virtuous son, son of the god Dharma, and Bhima, the strongest of men, son of Vayu, god of the wind, and the elder brother of Hanuman. And the third son of Kunti is Arjuna, an irresistible warrior, son of Indra. While the second wife of Pandu, makes use of his power too. She gives birth to two twins. Nakula and Sahadeva. Thanks to his wife, Pandu now has 5 sons directly descended from the gods, the Pandavas, or the heroes of the epic. Those 5 brothers are called the Pandavas. Years later, Pandu one day surrendered to his passion for Madri, fearing for his life. Madri tries to push him away, but her struggles only inflame his desire more. Once they make love, Pandu falls dead, fulfilling the curse, and Madri, devoted him, always joins him in the funeral pyre. After Pandu died, Dhritarashtra has become king. Despite in his blindness, he weds Gandhari in an arranged marriage. After an abnormally long pregnancy of 2 years, she gave birth to a ball of flesh. Vyasa tells Gandhari to split up the ball into 100 parts and put them in jars of ghee. In this way, she becomes the mother of 100 sons, or the Kauravas, and one daughter. Dhritarashtra is told that his first son brings hate and destruction into the world, who is Duryodhana. He will one day destroy the race. Vidura urges to the king to get rid of the child, but the king ignores his advice, so Duryodhana is still alive. So as the story goes, Dhritarashtra is a weak ruler. He allows physical blindness to become a refusal to face reality and unwillingness to confront hard decisions, being easily led by Duryodhana in later years. Bhishma advised Dhritarashtra to declare Yudhishthira as the crown prince of Hastinapur, since he was the eldest and endowed with fine qualities of a king. Yudhishthira is the first son of Pandu with Kunti. Out of anger, Duryodhana planned to kill the Pandavas so that he can ascend the throne of Hastinapur. However, the Pandavas narrowly escaped a plot by Duryodhana to burn them in a house made of highly inflammable materials. 4 months afterward, they live in the forest. So the Pandavas attend the Swayamvara of Draupadi, a ceremony where she will pick her husband from a number of suitors. But Arjuna wins the archery contest easily, and Draupadi chooses him. When Arjuna announced to his mother that he won the prize, Kunti tells him to share with his brothers before seeing Draupadi. Like an irrevocable vow, her statement can be undone, so all 5 brothers marry the daughter of Drupada, who is Draupadi. So, di ba ang ganda ng story? So, as the tension mounts between the cousins, Krishna makes his appearance. It is said he may be an incarnation of the god Vishnu, the preserver, came down to save the earth from chaos. On Krishna's advice, the Pandavas present themselves to the blind king Dhritarashtra to make peace. So Dhritarashtra offers them the half of the kingdom, but in a region which was nothing but jungle and desert. Yudhishthira accepts his offer in a hope of averting the war, para maiwasan yung war between the Kauravas and Pandavas. Living in their new territory, of Indraprastha, Yudhishthira turns poor land into a wealthy kingdom and declaring himself king of kings, king of kings. Duryodhana is jealous and humiliated on his visit to the magnificent place. So Duryodhana follows the advice of his uncle to cunning Shakuni in an infamous dice player and invites Yudhishthira to a game knowing full well that gambling is cousin Swan's weakness and Yudhishthira accepts. So Yudhishthira wages and loses all the possess his land, his kingdom, his brother, even himself, and eventually Draupadi, who is dragged before the company by her hair, a special insult since a married woman was sacred. So Duryodhana seeks to enter her by uncovering his thigh. Draupadi about to strip naked when she invokes Krishna, who comes to her rescue and creates an endless supply cloth around her. She wears that one day she will be avenged. So, sinamantala ni Duryodhana ang kahinaan ni Yudhishthira, which is the gambling. So, Duryodhana insists one more throw of the dice. Yudhishthira agrees to a final games, but once again, he lost. The Pandavas and Draupadi are condemned to spend 12 years exile in the forest and 13 years in an unknown place, disguised so that no one may recognize them. If anyone does, they can must be spent another 12 years in exile. So sa pagkatalo niya, napalaya sila sa lugar. So they stayed in the forest. So for the 12 years living in the forest, preceding the Great War, the Pandavas are not alone in the wilderness, but are followed by many loyal Brahmins and servants. The gods give them exhaustible plate of food to feed all of them. So Draupadi and Bhima reproach Yudhishthira for his inaction and resign passivity. Since it is obvious that Shakuni cheated the dice, wouldn't it be better to stand up and fight? Yudhishthira flatly refuses. He will keep his word. He resolves and follows his dharma. In the succeeding story, Arjuna then leaves, aiming for the highest mountain to look for the celestial weapon they will need during the war. He meets the god Shiva, who gives him the powerful weapon. So Arjuna then spent 5 years with his father and divine Indra learning to use power fighting the demons. However, one day, the 4 Pandavas are killed drinking the water from a poisonous lake. However, Yudhishthira brings his brother back to life by correctly answering the question which Dharma disguised as a crane to puts to him. So meanwhile, Duryodhana has launched attack on Virata's kingdom Draupadi, who seeks war with the Kauravas at all cost points, out Arjuna as the world's best charioteer. Arjuna cannot refuse to fight and decisively victorious one man against countless armies. So Duryodhana refuses to give his cousins back to their kingdom because he claims they came out of hiking before the appointed time. So Krishna pleads with Dhritarashtra one last time to restore the Pandavas their rightful kingdom. So Duryodhana convinced himself that since God had not blessed Pandavas, they would not protect them during the war. I can sacrifice my life, my wealth, my kingdom, my everything, but I can never live in peace with Pandavas. So yan yung sinabi ni Duryodhana. So Krishna offers Arjuna first choice, either he can have all Krishna's army or he can have Krishna alone. So Arjuna chooses Krishna, allowing Duryodhana to have the armies. When Arjuna asks him to dive the chariot, Krishna accepts. So the king Dhritarashtra sends an envoy to Yudhishthira and begs not to fight since he loves righteousness. Yudhishthira responds that each caste has its own duty and he is a warrior or king, not a Brahmin or a beggar. So, yun. So the war starts. Duryodhana was unwilling to restore the Pandavas to their half of the kingdom when 13 years had expired. Both sides called upon their many allies, and two large armies arrayed themselves on the Kuru's field. So, ang naglalaban dito is ang mga Duryodhana and laban sa Pandavas. So the Kauravas have 11 divisions to stand against the 7 Pandavas. The two armies are described as two oceans crushing each other. So mas lamang ang Duryodhana. After the Pandavas won the war, they all come to see Bhishma's body laying on the arrows. So actually, in the battles, the Pandavas won against Duryodhana. So Bhishma lies on a bed of arrows and wait for the right moment to shed his mortal coil. In his dying speech, pierced by many arrows, Bhishma tells Yudhishthira, if one fights against trickery, one should oppose him with trickery. But if one's fight lawfully, one should check him with dharma. So with this speech of Bhishma, what can you say about it? So we can ask Mom. So next, one should conquer evil with good. Death by dharma is better than victory by evil deeds. He asked Yudhishthira to rule the kingdom. One should conquer evil with good. Death by dharma is better than victory by evil deeds. Ito is sinabi ni Bhishma. So he asked Yudhishthira to rule the kingdom. So Yudhishthira reports the death toll of at 6 million within 18 days. So the battle ends in 18 days. Appalled at such losses, he has a personal crisis similar to Arjuna before the battle. He doesn't want to rule because it requires the use of force and more violence. Yun yung ayaw ni Yudhishthira. So as the end of the story, or as ending of the story. When they learned of this, the Pandavas believed it's time for them to live in the world too and embark upon the great journey which involved walking north toward the polar mountain that is toward the heavenly worlds until one body dropped dead. So dahil napagtagumpayan na nila, so they are willing to have a great journey. So Yudhishthira arrives at the entrance to paradise carrying a dog in his arm. His brothers Draupadi, who left the earth with him, have fallen from mountains in the abyss along the way. So parang ready na silang maglakbay. Or ready sa kanilang paglalakbay. Isa sa kanila ay mamamatay along the way. One by one, Draupadi and the younger Pandavas died along the way until Yudhishthira was left alone with a dog that had followed him all the way. As they reach, a gatekeeper tells him to abandon the dog if he wants to enter the paradise. He refuses to leave, a creature so faithful, and is permitted to enter. For this was a test. The dog was the god Dharma in disguise. So in paradise, Yudhishthira saw his enemies are there, smiling and contented. He decided to stay with his loved ones, Draupadi, in hell rather than enjoy the lights of heaven with enemies. This too was a test, the final illusion. They are all permitted to enter the paradise. So yan ang story ng Mahabharata. Ngayon naman, we have the next story which is the Ramayana. So, the story of Ramayana, we have here the characters. Dasarata, the king of Ayodhya or the capital of Kosala, whose eldest son was Rama. Dasarata had 3 wives and 4 sons. We have Rama, Bharata, and the twins Lakshmana and Saturna. Satrugna. So, Rama, the Sastra's firstborn and the upholder of Dharma. Rama, along with his wife Sita, have served as a role models for 1,000 generations in India and elsewhere. Rama is regarded by many Hindus as an incarnation of the god Vishnu or the preserver, and by Southeast Asian Buddhists as an incarnation of Buddha. The story of Ramayana is maganda siya actually yung summary niya. Talagang meron din tayong mapupulot na lesson. So, ang kinuha ko lang are the characters and their characteristics in the story. Sita, Rama's wife, the adopted daughter of King Janak, Sita was found in the furrows of sacred field and was regarded by people of Janak's kingdom as a blessed child. So actually, Rama and Sita are mag-asawa sila. So Hanuman, a leader of monkey tribe, allied with Rama against Ravana. Hanuman has many magical powers because his father was the god of the wind. Hanuman's devotion to Rama and his supernatural feats in the battle to recapture Sita has made him one of the most popular characters in Ramayana. So, actually in the story, mababasa natin sa bandang huli yung summary niya. So, Ravana, the ten-headed king of Lanka who abducted Sita, kung saan kinidnap or kinuha niya si Sita against Rama. Kauslaya or Dasarata's first wife and the mother of Rama. So we have here the Lakshmana, the last character, Rama's younger brother by Dasarata's third wife Sumitra. When Rama and Sita were exiled to the forest, Lakshmana followed in order to serve. So in the story, the basic teaching for Ramayana is that no matter how powerful evil is, it will always be defeated by good. Truth always wins, no matter how vicious or poisonous lie is, because even a bitter truth oozes with positivity, and the sweetest lie has the darkest agenda behind it. The win of good over evil is a universal faith. So, ulitin ko dito sa part na to. Truth always wins, no matter how vicious or poisonous lie is, because even a bitter truth oozes with positivity, and the sweetest lie has the darkest agenda behind it. So, dito sa parang saying, maganda yung ibig sabihin. So, nasa sa inyo kung nagets natin or hindi. Pero I hope nagets niyo yung story ng Ramayana, and I believe na we are related or napag-aralan natin ang the story of Ramayana. The win of good over evil is a universal fate. So, never naman nagtagumpay ang evil sa good. So, that is the end of my report about the Hindu literature. So, Meri Batsune Keliye, Dhanyavad. Thank you for listening.